65 horsepower trap. That might pop wide open, Rats.
Welcome in, everybody, to another edition of the TPT podcast. Another big-time guest back with us again, Mike Tozzi. How you doing? It's good to have you back on the show again. We know we talked about you coming back for the Super Bowl. It's good to have you back on the show. How are you doing?
It's a pleasure to be here as always, and I'm happy for you that your Chiefs got through the Bengals. I know I had predicted Joe Burrow and the Bengals. I'm even wearing my Cincinnati orange. I didn't do that on purpose, but heck of a game. I'm sure we'll dive into that in a little bit, but it's on your squad to defeat my arch nemesis, the Philadelphia Eagles.
That is true. I know a lot of Giants fans. They became diehard Chiefs fans this week because they don't want to have the Eagles get as many Super Bowls as the Giants have the last 15 seasons. So they're eager for those Kansas City Chiefs. And speaking of, like you said, the Bengals, we know you got your little Bengals orange on, but let's talk about that game. A lot of storylines coming out of that game. You have, an absolute shootout. You know, we know there was some concerns going in with the offensive line of the Bengals. And that was one of the reasons I had the Chiefs winning that game was their offensive line. And Frank Clark and, man, Chris Jones came alive. What are some of your takeaways from that AFC Championship game?
Yeah, early in the game, the Chiefs D-line was dominating, and it looked the Bengals were flat out outplayed in the first quarter, but the fact that they kept it as close as they did at the half, they got that field goal before the half, kept it a one-score game, played a good third quarter. I thought they showed enough signs that they could actually win that game, but some sketchy calls in there that seemed to go the Chiefs' way, but for Mahomes to just hang in the pocket with that bad ankle and then scamper at times when he needed to, and what Chris Jones and Steve Spagnuolo were able to do for that Kansas City defense, rise up at the right time, expose that rough Bengals line. And, you know, the play at the end there, Osai knocks him out of bounds too late. That's going to get called every time. But I wanted to see overtime. I think the better team did win the game, and the Chiefs, the Bengals showed their deficiencies. And if it had been the Bengals in the Super Bowl, I think the Eagles would have eaten that offensive line alive. But big fan of Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. How could you not? Curious to see what they do moving forward to try and improve that team. And the defense really hung in there against that Chiefs team. But at the end of the day, Mahomes is a miracle man, what he's able to do while injured. And Andy Reid, great coach. I'm putting my faith and trust in Mr. Mahomes to somehow find a way to beat the Eagles.
Right. And like you said, some crazy calls we're going to get into at the end. And, you know, as a Chiefs fan, I got to be 100% honest. When Joe Burrow got that ball with 2 minutes left, I was like, here we go. Here's this movie again. He's going to go down. He's going to get a field goal, and we're going to lose this game. You know, and I'm pretty faithful with my Chiefs, but, you know, over the years, I think, and this is something I wanted to talk about on the show, is the Chiefs defense gets criticized a lot. And this matchup going to the Super Bowl, they're the second best sack team in the league, or one of the best sack teams in the league. And you have a guy, obviously Chris Jones, phenomenal player, had a crazy game, made that play, that third down sack to get the Chiefs the ball back. I think that was the game right there. Obviously, you know, Mahomes, there was 8 to 10 seconds left when he got pushed out of bounds. You know, it would have been a 58, 59-yard field goal. They would have had to kick it from there. But I think the play that turned that game right there was that Chris Jones sack. I mean, Chris Jones absolutely lit up the game. I think he had 5 QB knockdowns, 2 sacks, a batted pass. Absolutely played phenomenal. But the thing I want to talk about is the main concern for the Kansas City Chiefs, and I'm curious your thoughts, has been the secondary. No wide receiver for this Bengals squad had more than, I think it was 75 yards or over 90 yards receiving. These are all rookies. They had to play with 4 or 5 rookies on that game. What are your thoughts on how these rookies stepped up for the Kansas City Chiefs and going into the Super Bowl. Can they do that again?
Yeah, I mean, that's the big question. And that's good recall on your part. Going back to that final drive when Burrow shook whoever it was and got that first down, when he then converted that 3rd and 16, I was like,
Right.
there's no way the Bengals aren't going to go down and score. But then Jones with the big sack, Sky Moore with the big return, and then, the late hit penalty certainly made it easy for your guy, Harrison Butker. But yeah, Spagnuolo does a really good job with his defenses in terms of like the big picture. Week to week, it might look like a work in progress still, but
right.
Defense was earlier on versus, now that it's winning time, elimination style football. Man, was it McDuffie? Is that the rookie?
Yeah, Trent McDuffie played phenomenal.
Johnny on the spot. He seems to be at the right time. And when you have that sort of pass rush that the Chiefs were able to show against Cincinnati, makes it a whole lot easier for, I wouldn't say amateur corners, because I think Romo said it on the broadcast. They started the season out as rookies, but by this time of the season, they've been through it. So they've become veterans in a way. And I know people have been critical of Tony Romo as of late. Still my guy. I won't say anything bad about him, but they're going to have their hands full this time, because it's not just A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert, but it's the way they're used. The Nick Sirianni offense. I know Julian Love of the Giants said some really clown stuff in terms of anyone could coach the Eagles, the way they're built. They got dogs. I mean, partially true, but no, you have to give Nick Sirianni credit, because they just seem very organized. Not only do they have the talent, but they're able to run the ball in different ways. The RPO stuff, if Hurts can become live in the run game, that makes it three-dimensional. You got Hurts, Miles Sanders, and then all the guys that they can throw to. So nobody's really learned how to properly play defense against the Eagles just yet. I do think, just gut feeling, Jalen Hurts is going to be forced to convert some big third downs via throwing the ball. And I'm curious to see him in obvious passing situations, if the Chiefs can make it, how he'll do if Chris Jones and Willie Gay made some nice plays in the first quarter of that game. If those guys can get involved and they can make the Eagles a little bit more one-dimensional, maybe there's a shot. Gut feel, and this might be a little bit early to talk about, but kind of feel like the Eagles will be ahead at the half, but they won't pull far enough away to where Mahomes can try and catch them towards the end.
Yeah, and going back to the run game, that's the biggest part for the Eagles. If the Kansas City Chiefs can turn the Eagles into the Chiefs, as in making them one-dimensional, like you said, and forcing them to run the ball. But again, Jalen Hurts, since the shoulder injury, he hasn't had a game, I think, over 150 yards. I could be wrong on that.
Missed a few guys last week too.
Yeah, and I saw, he hasn't had the best games. If you look at his last couple of games coming back from that shoulder injury. So do you think this game is going to be a battle won in the trenches? And you touched on it, the Chiefs, they're going to have to make them a one-dimensional team. We just saw the Chiefs corners and these rookie young guys hold two great wide receivers. Like you said, obviously they got another guy like Dallas Goedert, but they use them in different ways than the Bengals do. But last thing I'll ask you here before I get your side of this is, do you feel like teams like even the Bengals last week and the Eagles, they feel like they see those rookie corners and they see that weakness, quote unquote, the backside that they kind of want to do that? Do you think the Eagles kind of get out of character in that sense, or do you think that they're going to have to go with what they know and run the ball?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? I think based on how the Eagles have done things, they feel foolproof in every style of play. So I'd be surprised if they got away from, doing what they've done best, which is actually throw the ball well on early downs and then get into short yards rushing situations. Right. So it's almost like in baseball, starting off with breaking balls and then hitting you with fastballs late. That's kind of, they hit you with the passes early, and then they get in fourth and short. They're better than anybody, at sneaking, and Miles Sanders on the RPOs. So, again, gut feeling, the Eagles have had a lot of games this year in the regular season, especially, and it turns out in the playoffs, they play one really great half of football, and then they're up 2-3 scores, and they're able to just kind of drain clock and and beat you that way. This game feels like it's going to be 60 minutes, and they're going to have to stop a late rally from Mahomes. But in terms of the Eagles going against that Chiefs defense, I do not know how you stop, especially early in the game where you have to still get used to how they're running plays, and just they're different than everybody else. That's why they're here. I think, some people said that they had an easy route here. In theory, yes, but no, because it speaks more to me that they're just ready for this and that much better than the rest of the NFC. Mahomes, they have not faced a quarterback like that all season, but the Chiefs defense will have their hands full early, I would assume.
Yeah. And that's something I was going to ask you too. You got a lot of people that are on the side of the Eagles. They haven't really played anybody. They're a fluke team, and it's easy. They shouldn't be in the Super Bowl. I'm not quite ready to jump on that bandwagon. The only thing I will say about the Eagles, because it's hard to really point out their flaws. The only thing that you can lock in on the Eagles that I've looked at is they have not been fully battle tested yet.
Right.
Obviously, again, the Giants were a good team. They rowdied versus the Giants. In the 49ers game, you can't judge it off of losing, to both of their quarterbacks and Christian McCaffrey. And I think the best quarterback they beat in the regular season was Trevor Lawrence. They played Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron Rodgers went out early in that game.
Right.
But do you think that some of these numbers for the Eagles, because when you look at the numbers, they scored the same amount of points as the Chiefs. They had the same amount of Pro Bowlers. They had the same amount of All Pros. And, the 70 sacks. Do you think that some of those numbers are elevated a little bit because of the talent of play, or is their defense that legit?
I mean, you're hitting right on the proper keys. These are themes that I can't wait to see answered or not answered in the Super Bowl. Just think about it. The Washington Commanders did come into their stadium and kind of not whoop them, but they enforced their will.
They led for, I think, 90% of that game.
Yeah, they really out-toughed them. And that's the delusional Giant fans such as myself kept kind of going back to that game. Like, hey, if the Commanders could do it, I know it was a regular season Monday night game, but if they could play like that in that building, why not us? So we've seen it happen before. And, that's another thing. I think it'll help the Chiefs not having to play the Eagles at Lincoln Financial Field. That place is just a hell pit. I mean, those fans are so
right now.
Oh, it's just a brutal place to play. You got everything going against you there. So the fact that it's neutral site, I'm sure Eagles fans will travel well. Chiefs fans should travel well also. And you got your share of corporate crowd. So getting rid of that home field advantage helps a little bit. Something you mentioned before, the trenches, they always do play a part. I do feel like the Chiefs can somewhat hold their own when it comes to the trenches, and then having Mahomes and Kelsey, just kind of the peanut butter and jelly recipe when all else fails. You got that connection to help you out on third downs. And if they can get any sort of, and I might be kind of going all over the place here, but if they can get any sort of consistent production from, the wideouts, it's been kind of a wild crew for the Chiefs, and guys seem to step up when they're needed. Valdez-Scantling has come through. Do we know about Kadarius Toney? He was nowhere to be found in some of those important snaps late in the Cincinnati game. I think he went out with an ankle. You know how he's doing?
So Kadarius Toney, it's funny. He injured himself on an own juke move, which is the guy's a crazy freak athlete. But someone needs to get a hold of him and say, hey, man, maybe not cut that hard on some of your moves, man. Your ankles aren't holding up. He's questionable right now, as is Snead. And that's what I'm going to get to right now is you have Snead who's questionable. They're likely to play, but they're still in questionable because he had the concussion. Hardman is not going to play. Right. He is sat down for the year. Juju Smith-Schuster likely to play. Willie Gay likely to play because, we talked about earlier, all those guys went out. Guys went out in the game, and you had Marcus Kemp coming and catching passes. That guy was a gunner special teams player. All about gunner special teams players like David Tyree coming into a game and all of a sudden having to catch passes. Am I saying if Marcus Kemp has to come in and catch passes for the Chiefs?
Who's my guy who was inactive last week who actually showed some good?
Justin Watson?
Yeah, I kind of like him.
Yeah, Justin Watson. He came from the Bucs.
Yeah.
Really, he's kind of like MVS is NVS. one game he's going to go off for 110. The next game he's
Possession
going to
guy.
he's going to have 8 yards. And he had, like, kudos to MVS. He had a great game last week. Like, he was huge for the Chiefs when they needed him, when all those guys went out, because Juju went out, Hardman went out, Kadarius went out. And, MVS had to be that guy, and he stepped up. And those are some of the injury concerns coming in for the Chiefs. I know we talked about Hurt's shoulder. How much is he going to say, F it, I'm just going to run?
No more games after this.
Huh?
No more games after this for Mahomes or Hurts.
No more games for, Hurts or Mahomes. But at the same time, they don't want to hurt their team,
right?
And, trying to do too much. But, those are some of the injury concerns coming in for the Chiefs. And Justin Watson should be back for this game. Edwards-Helaire. Yeah, Edwards-Helaire. He's coming back for this game. I don't know if he'll get a lot of touches.
Don't let him get in the way of my guy, Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah,
that's somebody we have to
say. You guy Pacheco, I know you're high on him. That guy can run. Outside of Derrick Henry, he may be the hardest runner in the NFL.
Really runs hard. I mean, I got a great look at him at Rutgers. I'm from the Central Jersey area, and I've always pulled for Rutgers. And he was kind of the one shimmering light of hope on that offense that has not had a quarterback in a long time, some would say.
Yeah.
But everybody that watched Rutgers games, like, I think he's got NFL talent. We had to see it play out. He had to end up in the right.
He was on a really bad team, really bad offensive line.
Yeah. So, when he gets
a good offensive line, a good team with the Chiefs.
When he gets outside and he's able to run in a straight line, I mean, it is impressive to watch. We saw that flash in I think it was the Jacksonville game.
And he's very fast. He's a fast guy.
So fast, runs tough. He's got good charisma. He's really been a great thing to see for the Chiefs. And I know they like to get away from the running game at times. And how could you not? You got Patrick Mahomes. You're going to lose your strengths. But
right.
One of the things that the Eagles have been knocked for is their run defense at times. But and Ndamukong Suh, the OG, they brought him in, and Davis from Georgia, like, they're still pretty tough up there too. So going against this Eagle defense, they can be had at times, but they usually get to play with a lead where they just get to pin their ears back.
Right.
I think ball control is going to be big in this one. If the Chiefs can make that defense kind of stay out on the field and make the Eagles offense have to rush a little bit, that's easier said than done. But that's like, themes in past Super Bowls. You think of when the Patriots came back and beat the Falcons, that defense was on the field like all game, and they finally just got gassed. And I feel like maybe that's something that Chiefs can try to make happen.
Yeah, and even though it was last season, you touched on it, they added a couple pieces on the defensive side of the ball. But Reddick's not really a run stopper. As soon as they're he's
Arizona for whatever reason wanted him to be inside, and the guy should be the defensive player of the year this year because he's been moved back to his normal position.
Right. And look what he did versus the 49ers. He was killing the 49ers.
The giant game too.
Yeah. I mean, Reddick, great pass rusher. Chris McCaffrey, of course, they're running the ball a lot. But if you're running the ball a lot, that just gives you more opportunities to stop the ball more. And he had a pretty good day. That is Chris McCaffrey. We're not comparing him to Pacheco.
Did everything he could.
But Pacheco, great runner. If he gets any type of space, he can be gone. Do you think that the Chiefs are going to go against what they know? Because, again, you're getting Andy Reid off of a bye week. We know his record off of a bye week, 26-6. And he's going versus – and if you notice, most people didn't notice this, and I pointed this out. When they were at the championship ceremony, one of the first thing he says is, now we got the Eagles, baby. Andy Reid ain't usually says things like that.
Right.
But we know this is a little bit of a payback game. Spags used to work for them. Brett Veach. There's a lot of people. Coach Merritt, our defensive backs coach. A lot of connections between the Chiefs and the Eagles. Do you think the Chiefs go to a little bit of more of this ground game? Because Clyde Edwards-Helaire had 110 yards last time they played him last year, but they were able to run the ball very effectively. Do you think they're going to have to get out of character a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think this Eagles team this year just plays a lot faster and different. But yes, I would like to see, but even if it's running through the passing game, throwing it to Pacheco more. I think last week he didn't have as much success on the ground, but he did nice catching some short passes and finally some blockers. So yeah, I'm sort of picturing in my head now Pacheco getting loose. finding a way. I'm, trying to compute ways to here in my head.
And we haven't seen him have that Pacheco. We've seen him have great games, but it's like you haven't seen. And a lot of people in local in Kansas City on the radio are saying this needs to be Pacheco game.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because when you think Mahomes and the Chiefs, you often think big play. I mean, that came with Tyreek Hill type of offense, but they've been very meticulous, especially with Mahomes' ankle being the way it's been, but that's gotten them to this point. So I think they're better served continuing trying to play that way against the Eagles, who, I mean, they get out to 14-0 leads pretty often, but I feel like the Chiefs they played it smart to this point, and I expect the Eagles to score the first time they have the ball, and then it's like, let's see what they do from here. So, good balance, continue a good balance. Mahomes, stay healthy, stay in that pocket. I think it's, some people have said it's actually helped him, slowed the game down, keeping him just making easy reads, because in that Andy Reid offense, it's Chad Henne showed what you can do in that offense. And then you got the best in the world that gets to call those signals.
Yeah. I mean, Mahomes, best QBR, most touchdowns, most yards. And I think he had 2 picks from throwing inside the pocket this season. Most people look at him and, they think, it's get him out of the, keep him in the pocket. That's how you beat the Chiefs. But not having Tyreek this year, they've kind of dusted out the Alex Smith offense and said, get the ball to the playmakers. I mean, usually you see McKinnon, who's a great player in the screen game. Now all of a sudden these teams are, starting to play this too deep where they're doubling Kelsey. They just say, get it Pacheco. And if you get that guy in the open field, one, that first guy he's gonna beat. 2, his speed. I mean, most people think, he's a powerful runner. I mean, he's got top tier speed. And you just touched on it. I mean, the Chiefs offense is so much different than it was last year. Teams can't just drop 2 safeties deep or drop 8 or whatever it may be.
Yeah, they'll beat you underneath.
Yeah.
And you bring up McKinnon before, and it just crossed my mind. I wasn't aware of what a great pass blocker he is. He really
exactly. We saw those the Jags.
I was impressed. I didn't realize that until I guess it was last week, or maybe it was against the Jags even. Dang, he was just wiping people out.
Yeah. Last week he had some key blocks, and I mean, on 3rd down they were keeping him in there, having him block and being there. And for the Chiefs, you may look at, another take is we're bringing up McKinnon and some of these others. We just brought up Watson. Do you think a lot of people, even on paper, I mean, because the Eagles have been so dominant, we look at the roster and we say, Miles Sanders, Gainwell, even though, again, Miles Sanders, great running back, but a lot of people don't realize he is not at a game over 100 yards yet this season. Great running back. Yeah, they're averaging, great yards per carry. But do you think that a lot of people are overlooking some of these players on the Chiefs offense? Because, again, it's Sky Moore, it's Justin Watson, it's not Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, I tinkle my pants just a little bit thinking about having to guard him back in the Titans.
Yeah, he's modern baby T.O. That's kind of how I He's huge and graceful. And, I mean, there's really hard to compare anyone to T.O. I just want to make a comparison, and that's probably the closest you're going to get with A.J. I mean, Mahomes makes everybody better. And then Kelsey's the best tight end I've ever seen. So when you got the best quarterback on the planet and the best tight end I've ever seen, that makes everybody else's job a lot easier, whether it's Pacheco, the line, and the weapons that he gets to throw to. I'm curious, based on who wins the Super Bowl, who do you feel like is going to end up being the MVP? If the Chiefs win or the Eagles?
So typically over the years, I thought Damian Williams back in 2019 actually should have been the MVP, not just because he was a Sooners guy, but just because he really went off. And if you look at each time the Chiefs have had in the playoffs, they've always had a running back at least 1 or 2 games to have a great game. Versus, I think in the 2020 season, it was Darrell Williams. Darrell Williams had like a 100-yard game versus the Bills, or maybe it was somebody else. We've always had a running back have a good game. So I would like to think it could be like a guy like Pacheco. I just kind of getting that feeling that a running back could go off in this game. But I just think they're going to give it to Mahomes. Who would I like to see? Travis Kelce, because he's been like so dominant where it's like, oh, he needs this many more yards to pass Jerry Rice, or he just passed Tony Gonzalez, Shannon Sharp, and all these guys. And it's just like, I mean,
but they're always going to give it to the quarterback.
Huh?
They're always going to give it to the quarterback.
Yeah, they're always going to give it to the quarterback because
am I crazy for? I'm looking at like the FanDuel odds because I just may throw a few things down on this game to keep it a little bit more interesting.
Right.
Hassan Reddick and Chris Jones each have crazy odds. It doesn't happen all the time. I think Von Miller did, right? The Panthers Broncos Super Bowl.
Yes. Yeah.
Every once in a while, you get a pass rusher that actually completely takes over this game. And I feel like there's going to be a little too much offense in this game. But I don't know. I feel like it might be just in case Chris Jones or Hassan Reddick are making an impact tonight. For the odds that they're at, I might sprinkle a little bit on it. Yeah,
and again, I wouldn't put it past Chris Jones. I mean, they were talking about, on PFF that he had one of the best games from a defensive lineman this last game. I mean, again, it's Jay's going up against Jason Kelce, and some other guys. Right. But he's a guy you can even move out to their tackles. Their tackles can struggle at times. They're still probably the best offensive line in the league.
Oh yeah, they let Lane Johnson get a early start on every snap too. I know that's something that people kind of
a lot of people do say that he may get offensive line, and even Jason Kelce talks about it. Even though he defends his guy, which I understand. But I mean, Chris Jones, if Chris Jones goes out and it's a 28-21 win or something like that, and he hits 4 or 5 sacks, then you could see it. But sadly, I think they just give it to the quarterback sometimes. Even if Kelce has 4 or 5 touchdowns and 2 of them are 85 yards, they're still gonna give it to
the guy who threw to him.
Yeah, they're just gonna say, "Oh, he threw that pass to him," even though it was a screen pass. But I'll go Mahomes. I mean, Mahomes is Mahomes or Hurts. And again, I like Hurts too. This is a really, really, really good Eagles team. Next thing I want to.
Real quick. Are you somebody who watches the halftime show without your team in it, with your team in it? How's that?
Typically I don't. Typically at our Super Bowl party, we'll either do like trivia or we'll do like a betting game, like what's the Kool-Aid gonna be, or so we'll go over like our tallies. Like I typically don't. Last year I did, and I thought it was pretty good, but it's Rihanna this time, so maybe. Yeah. But the commercials, I live for the commercials too. So, but I typically don't. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Like I remember when the Giants were in it against the Patriots, I had to basically have my own halftime meeting with the people I was watching it with, and kind of devised a game plan that wouldn't be used for Giants pick both years really. But if I don't have a dog in the fight, which is usually the case, depending on who it is, I'll watch. I mean, the last couple of years, I've watched the first half out at a bar and then made my way home for the second half. So, last year I had a phone on in my car. I'm seeing 50 Cent pop out. I thought last year's, from what I heard, was pretty good. But Rihanna's got as good of a catalog as anybody in the business. I've heard some people say she's not good live, which I was like, I never really thought of that. I'm sure the pageant.
It's going to be pre-recorded.
Yeah, I'm sure, they'll lip sync it out most likely, and it'll make it look good, and it'll be.
Oh, okay. But
pageantry will be on point, one way or the other. I mean, I'd like to hear her non-lip sync, but they'll make it look and sound perfect. I'm sure.
That's what I mean. Most people do now. They just lip sync over the lyrics.
Yeah, no, she should be good. I mean, I'm just wondering which batch of songs and what order. Been kind of going over that with people over here about which songs we think she's going to come out with. So that'll be interesting.
And it depends also if it's like, again, like you said, if they get out to early lead, because I know if it's like 17-7, again, it's Mahomes. You never can put it past Mahomes. But if they're able to run the ball, like a team like that, you have to get up against. But if the Chiefs are 17-7, the other way around, then I'll kind of, be feeling myself a little laid back, because I love the food at the Super Bowl party, and I'm always going to be eating the food. But it's like if the game's going on, it's like I can't eat. My stomach's going to be turning. So, I can't typically eat until it's like halftime or something like that.
Yeah. Finally take that exhale breath.
Yeah. And that's the next thing we want to get into before we get into some of the off-season thoughts and where some more people are going to go real quick. We're going to go over what is your top 3 must at a Super Bowl party. These are like, if you walk into my Super Bowl party, you don't see these things, you're walking out. You're just like, Jaden, gotta go. My house is on fire. What are these 3 things? You're like, you gotta have these, or even 5 if you want to go 5.
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably even keep it to 3 because I'm kind of like you. It's like once the game's over or halftime, that's when I can. I mean, most people, food is just as important as the game. For me, I'm locked into the game. I want to be able to talk about it all week, next week, and all that. So I don't even do a whole lot of drinking because I don't want to be too foggy and can't remember when certain things happen.
Right.
That's still kind of the case already. I'm like, this happened when? But buffalo wings, nachos, and beers. I mean, those 3 things, and I got to say, I'm a happy man.
Yeah, nachos. I feel like it's like I see these videos on TikTok, and it's like people rank ballpark food, and people aren't saying nachos enough. It's just so simple.
They got to be good. You can have a lot. They got to be good. You can have like a lot of mid-range nachos.
Yeah, you can have a lot of mid-range nachos, especially like some people think nachos like you have your queso with like the meat and the cheeses. Even that, it's like you can dip it, and you have to have that at a Super Bowl party. But I'm definitely gonna go nachos. Pizza, I feel like I haven't heard too much over the years, but you got to have some pizza there. And then booze, I feel like that's the holy grail. If you don't have that, then it's not a party. So I won't go booze, but 3, I'll go. You got to have like cookies. You got to have cookies or some type of pastry, or the little cookie cake with the Super Bowl logo, something like that.
That sounds good. I haven't been to a party that quality. I guess I'm usually the one hosting somewhat of a makeshift party that's half-assed put together, but that sounds good. The cookie cake with Super Bowl inspiration. Yeah.
So you got to have the cookie cake. Another thing that I wanted to go over you with real quick. This one's a fun one. I saw this on the New Heights podcast. Shout out Travis Kelsey and Jason Kelsey. Is they named the top 5 bowls. Any type of bowl. Could be a Chipotle bowl. Could be a cereal bowl. It could be the toilet bowl. What do you think your top? We'll go 3. Your top 3 bowls are.
All right. Well, I got 4 actually, and I'm going to start with
4.
Bowl of the Orlando Magic. I had to throw that.
Bowl. Hey, I like it. I like it.
That's what I got. Bowl. It gets the number 1 power ranking. Big fan of acai bowls.
Okay, a little fruit bowl. Okay.
Yeah, I'm big fruit guy, and I like the chill factor and acai, good antioxidants. Cereal bowl, big cereal guy.
Yeah,
hit them in waves. Yeah.
What are you going with though? Go-to. What's your go-to?
Oh, I've caught in some flack for this back in the day, or last time I discussed cereal on a podcast format. Lately, I'll go with the Honey Nut Cheerios, which I feel like I can't take too much heat on.
Very underrated, not bad.
Yeah, especially if you throw some chopped up banana and some berries in there.
Wait, are we talking like Honey Nut or just a plain Cheerio?
Honey Nut.
Okay, if it was like the baby ones, I would be like, all right, now.
The answer I gave back on a podcast a few years ago was Pops and Wheaties, and they were like, "Dude, you chose the worst 2 cereals."
Pops, not a big.
Those are one of the kids.
Honey bunches of oats is not good. But you said cereal. What is the next bowl?
I mean, and you already kind of said it, the Chipotle bowl. I'll say taco bowl because I'm not necessarily a Chipotle guy. I won't necessarily turn my nose up to it, but I like classic mom and pop type stuff.
Right. I mean, Bowl is a good one. Bowl is a good one. I like that. Shout out to Orlando Magic. They're having a good season. I got my Orlando Solar Bears hat, so got to rep the city. Got to rep the city. Man. So I would say toilet bowl because we use it every day.
Underrated call. Yeah, maybe not on the same wavelength as food when you think about it, but
yeah, you got to use it. I mean, after the food comes the toilet bowl.
Yeah.
You got to go cereal bowl. Like that's anyone who's are you a milk guy though? Do you put milk? Because some people eat dried cereal.
Yeah, dried cereal. I got to be in real dire straits where like I need a snack. The only thing is dry cereal, and I don't have milk. So yeah, of course I go milk. I put the cereal in first.
Okay, you're all right. You're all right. You're all right.
Yeah, I actually got in an argument with a real life human being that tried to say that
they were an NPC, man. They weren't real.
Yeah. I mean, I'm all for people marching to their own beat, but it's just like milk
Well,
and
it's pointless.
then I feel like I got to mix it together. I don't want it
and it
too
becomes
dry.
mushy too quick.
Yeah, like I don't want it soggy, but I also don't want it too dry. So I feel like, it's that proper ratio.
Right. So yeah, definitely got to go cereal. I'm a Cinnamon Toast Crunch guy or Fruit Loops.
Yeah,
A
good call.
little bit more new school, but Cinnamon Toast Crunch or Reese Puff, but Cinnamon Toast Crunch,
Not
classic.
too new school. Yeah, I mean, I think at the ripe age of when I'll be 32 on March 3rd, I got to be careful about that sugar intake. It's starting to go up.
Right. Yeah, so I'll definitely go cereal. Here's the thing about the Chipotle bowl. I say I get the Chipotle bowl, but I ask for a tortilla on the side for those people who eat Chipotle because you got two meals. Because if they fit it in just a burrito, then you're just getting one meal and they're just going to fit in there. But they can fit so much more in a bowl. So you get the bowl, you wrap it, you put your stuff in the tortilla. Now you got a meal for at 12 o'clock later that night. So I'll go with this Chipotle bowl, but I usually turn it into a burrito.
That's properly done. Veteran move on your part. I got to say.
Yeah. So next time you go to Chipotle, we need to try that. Just get a tortilla on the side. You put in the tortilla, bada bing, bada boom. You got two meals right there.
Quality.
Yeah. So
hoping the game will be as quality as that recommendation.
Yeah. And then I guess you can go, I don't know. The Super Bowl is kind of a cop out. I would say College Bowl, but they're not the same as they used to.
Bowl game.
So, and a fruit bowl. I mean, you said it. Acai bowl. You got to go fruit bowl. Nice, you chop up some fruit bowl.
It's healthy for you. It tastes good. Hard to get better than that. I'm probably ordering ASAP. Pliable. If you ever go to Pliables, pretty solid deal over there.
Yeah, I know there's one in Orlando, Winter Park area. For all my Orlando people that listen to podcasts, pretty good. They got some acai bowls over there. But moving on, I think we covered all the bowls there. I can't think of any other one. But you went number one. I like Bowl. That one's got to be the best one.
I was so excited to say that too.
Guys, if you guys have any bowls, you guys want to comment below. Moving on to the off-season side of things before we get your final game prediction on the Super Bowl. A lot of the QB carousel each and every year. So we'll start with a couple quarterbacks here, and then we'll get a little bit into the rookie quarterbacks that are coming in. You got a guy like Aaron Rodgers. What's your top three landing spots for Aaron Rodgers this offseason?
Well, the Jets, I feel like, are obvious, and they bring in Nathaniel Hackett, which what other reason can you really explain it after what we saw in Denver last year? I mean, Hackett's had success in the past as an offensive coordinator, didn't work as the head coach, but the fact that he couldn't make it work with Russell Wilson and some of the talent that they do have over there, questionable decision by the Jets. I think that's an all-in move to try and convince Rodgers to go because Rodgers likes them. They have the weapons. They have the defense. I would like to see that happen for the Jets and Aaron Rodgers, and it would just be hilarious to see him sort of follow in the Brett Favre.
Brett Favre, does he go to Minnesota? That's the next question.
Yeah, I mean, I doubt he'd end up going there, but
I'd
like to see that for the Jets. The Niners, I mean, the fact that he's went to school in the Bay Area, they passed up on him for Alex Smith all those years ago, and to see that full circle, I think Rodgers could definitely add a Super Bowl to the trophy case that everyone feels like he's missing one more of. If the Niners get him, that would just be a perfect marriage. And then after that, kind of hard to say. I feel like I'm going to take the easy way out and just go with those two teams, and I feel pretty strongly ends up on one or the other.
Right. So Aaron Rodgers, some teams, and again, I like the Jets, big market. They have the team. I don't think if the Jets, they do need to go get a veteran quarterback because they have the team. They can't wait on another rookie to get there. Because let's remember, there was 3-4 weeks in a row, they were top of their division until the quarterback was really the only problem in that team.
And it didn't help that Breece Hall went down with the injury.
And again, yes, you had Breece Hall who went down. Great player, the run game. They also got Michael Carter over there. They got the wide receivers. There's even guys you could add with like a second round pick like D-Hop. There's other receivers out there that you could maybe go pick up.
And I think even for Zach Wilson being able to sit behind Aaron Rodgers and learn some things, you never know.
Right.
I'm kind of out on Zach Wilson, but you can just add that to make another reason for why the Jets should go get him.
Exactly. And another team that I don't see enough people talking about, and a team that is in division that does not have, we don't know what's going to win. That is in the NFC South. The Saints, I feel like, could also be a great option. I mean, last year, what they win this year? 7, 8 games.
Yeah, they didn't
Have
have
a good
any.
running back. They got a pretty good offensive line. The receivers are there again. I just mentioned you could add another receiver, of course. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin's are
If
supposed to get
healthy,
dumped.
yeah.
And maybe the Bucks could trade them in division, but you never know. They got a good defense. We know about their defense. That's another team. I also think the Bucks could be an option, but I don't know if he wants to quite want to go to the Tom Brady route.
Yeah,
And of course, people are saying the Raiders. Maybe you saw some envy towards Raiders for taking his guy. Well, you have the Raiders. Do you think any of those, in your opinion, I could be wrong, are realistic landing spots?
I mean, potentially realistic. I think if I were Rodgers, I'd probably want to boil it down to just the Jets because of all the reasons we mentioned: big market, quarterback away, and then the Bay Area team that really feels like quarterback away. If they get Rodgers, they'd be ready to go. Those other landing spots, I don't know if I trust Dennis Allen and how he runs things with the Saints. And then we just saw in Tampa, Todd Bowles, but not really. I wished him luck. I thought he got kind of a raw deal with the Jets, even though everyone, talked on him, but he did not. That everything going on in Tampa just did not work out last year. I'd probably stay as far away from that as possible. And then the Raiders, I have no idea which way they're going. I thought maybe Brady could have been a look for them because of McDaniels. And Brady might get that itch before training camp too. I mean, I'm thinking he's ready to actually finally retire, but again, I'll believe it when I see it. I need a whole football season to be played out with him not on the field to officially believe it. But yeah, are the Raiders going to blow it up? Or are they going to try to go back in? I'm very confused with what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, the Raiders, they're in a division with Herbert, Wilson, Mahomes. If you go rookie quarterback, you're not going to win for at least a year or two if you go for a rookie quarterback. And again, there's a decision to be made. Is Devontae Adams going to want to play with a rookie quarterback, or is he going to say, hey, this isn't what I came here for. I came to play with a guy like Derek Carr and move on like a Randy Moss did back in the day and move on to a different team. Maybe tries to pair back up with Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
Another team that we talked about, since we're kind of on the Orlando/Florida theme here, is the Bucks. And again, even if they want to keep a guy like Godwin and Evans and get their offensive line healthy again, so that was really the big part of it, and they couldn't run the ball well. They can fix some of those things around. What's a quarterback you could see them? Lamar's still out there. Jimmy G's still out there. We know Lamar's from Florida. I'm maybe giving these Bucks fans some help, or these some good luck, but some hope. Yes, some hope. And again, you got Derek Carr, you got Jimmy G. Who's the quarterback? And Kyle Trask still back there. Who would you like to see the Bucks under center for the quarterback for the Bucks?
Yeah, Bucks are in kind of a weird spot. Like, I don't think they're in a full position to be able to blow it up. But then it's like, we had Tom Brady and it didn't work with him. So how the hell are you going to pivot to something better than Tom? I mean, Tom might not have been on his best behavior at the very end there. Very distracted this year and older, and the line was beat up. But I think you said it. I mean, Carr or Garoppolo would be a stabilizer for them. I think Jimmy G is just like a very solid, you know what you're getting, nothing too crazy, but like a professional quarterback. Carr has the upside of somebody who can light it up, but he also has the double-edged sword ability where he can let games get away from him, throw a lot of picks. I think they're best off trying to draft someone, with all due respect to Kyle Trask. I mean, you can never have enough competition. Anthony Richardson is probably the most polarizing prospect in terms of, he crazy upside, didn't show a whole lot at Florida besides the athleticism. You wonder if he can make the NFL window throws, but if he ends up with the right quarterback coaching and offensive coordinators and weapons, he might be able to do something. I don't know if he's the right fit for them either. I'm trying to think. Bucks, weird spot. Curious to see what they do.
Yeah, Bucks, Panthers, even the Falcons are talking about getting Lamar. That whole
I could see the Falcons. That would be kind of cool because
Michael Vick.
Michael Vick ties. Kyle Pitts has never really been fully unlocked. And for him, I mean, he's had Mark Andrews and really nothing else to throw to in Baltimore his whole career. Giving him Pitts, Drake London, I even like Zacchaeus. He's a good slot type guy. And the way their head coach knows how to run the ball, would love to see Lamar with the
He
Falcons.
would have decent money to, again, keep building that offense or defense if they wanted to. So a lot of decisions to be made in the South. And again, we just talked on Lamar. Is there any other teams you could see Lamar on?
I could see Lamar anywhere, really. I mean, I am a little curious to, how a guy who uses the run, the on the ground mobility to longevity wise, like I'm not saying Robert Griffin III went out there and played
right.
the playoff game. That's why it's hard to kind of get at Lamar for not just putting a brace on it and going at it, which is crazy that Michael Vick was like, put a brace on it. I played with an MCL one season.
Right.
So that was interesting to hear. But in the long term, Lamar's shown signs that he can really make the throws, but he has lost a lot of the playoff games that he's played besides one. And so he has to answer question. I mean, certainly a great talent when you're talking about throwing a bunch of money and longevity with a running quarterback. That's something that kind of concerns me. But if you're the Falcons, why not? Just take the chance. Like, what else are you going to do? Desmond Ridder? I don't know if he's ready yet.
Yep, exactly.
So Lamar, I would like to see him somewhere where the Ravens do things how they do them. And I respect the hell out of that franchise, but it just feels like it's gotten kind of stale in terms of how they're building around Lamar. I'd like to see him in a different situation.
Right. And again, Lamar, great quarterback, but again, the durability. Because Michael Vick, again, was a great quarterback, but he never played a full season, not one season. He played 16 games, and he's one of my all-time favorite players because I know if we did randoms and it landed on the Falcons, Zarek was in some trouble because I was just going to run. Or the Eagles, I was just going to run all day with Michael Vick. So big Michael fan. I would love to see Lamar go to the Falcons, maybe even wear number 7 and look like Michael Vick out there. But the last couple of questions before we get out of here is the rookie quarterbacks. You're a GM of, we'll say, the Texans or one of these teams that need a quarterback. Who is the best decision you're going to make? That's going to be the face of your franchise for the next 10 years. Who are you going with?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Like after recency bias, watching CJ Stroud go against that professional Georgia Bulldog defense and do what he did,
right.
Especially after looking at what they did to Max Duggan and TCU the next week. It's like, how could you not? There were at least 4 throws he made that game where I was like, whoa, that's a baller play right there. And I feel like these eyes don't lie when I feel that. So CJ Stroud to me is the higher upside guy, even though I don't always trust Ohio State quarterbacks. Justin Fields starting to make that a thing, even though we still have questions about him through the air. He's dynamic. Right. Potential's through the roof. He could be like Jalen Hurts something 0.0, CJ Stroud's my high upside guy. I think the safe pick is Bryce Young, even though he's like a smaller quarterback. He just has a good feel for how to play the position, and he's clutch, and he hasn't worked with the very best Alabama offenses through the years. When you look at Alabama, he had all his receivers get hurt in that national championship that he played, and he was throwing to, backup Alabama receivers should be top tier, but there were guys who made big drops in that national championship. I think Bryce Young's the safe pick. I think the home run swing, which I would take, is CJ Stroud. With all due respect to Will Levis, I don't know. Everybody's comparing him to Josh Allen, and that might be the type of guy he is. When I tuned in, I wasn't insanely impressed, but
I agree.
He might be not as big as the schools as the others. So I'm putting him third behind Bryce Young, but I got CJ Stroud going first.
Yeah, and CJ Stroud, I think, may be the best NFL look quarterback. Because again, Bryce Young, there are some questions because he is a nimble, smaller guy. They have him at 6'6", 6'1".
Yeah.
Not the biggest quarterback, but Russell Wilson is his comparison. But the track record of an Alabama, and again, Alabama's receivers, you touched on, haven't been the best in the past, so you can't really have that type of what's the word?
Can't hold them to that.
You can't hold them to that because the quarterbacks in the past, Mac Jones, all due respect to Mac Jones, he would throw it to a guy, a slant route, and he would go 92 yards.
Right.
And they're like, oh my God, Mac Jones looks terrific. It's like, well, that's also like, come on, look who it is.
Yeah, he made some big throws that year, and he's shown some things with the Pats, but he certainly, I'd like to see Bryce Young with that type of receiver.
Yeah, exactly. And then you touched on Ohio State quarterbacks. So I'm reading this list. They haven't really panned out well because we want to talk about that with him, Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah.
The other receiver, he's got a fun. Yeah, he's had great receivers to throw to, great offensive line, great players to throw to. So it's like, was it necessarily the team or was it the system of the quarterback? But again, great quarterback, CJ Stroud. So who do you think are the first three quarterbacks off the board here?
Yeah, I think it's Young, Stroud, and Levis. And I feel pretty safe in saying that. Anthony Richardson, I've seen some scuttlebutt that he could be like a top 10 guy. And I mean, based on potential.
The Panthers, maybe a Cam Newton.
Yeah, a team that's desperate enough to get a quarterback and try to solve it. I think it'd be better for him if he lasts a little bit longer and ends up with a team that's has their stuff together. But I'd like to see him end up with the Panthers, like you just said. I think that'd be a fun destination for him.
Yeah, and again, you don't have to throw him right out there. Sam Darnold isn't the best, but even if he has to sit a year and learn, maybe get thrown out there here and there, but just to learn, because, I mean, he only played one really full year with Florida to get out there and learn a system.
Yeah, and I didn't think he had necessarily the best weapons there either.
Right, and that starts out at the receiver position. Yeah. He's got the Jacksonville running back's little younger brother.
Yeah. Etienne.
Yeah, so he had some weapons in the run game, but not too much in the passing game. Speaking about the run game, the passing game, final segment here. Let's get your Super Bowl prediction, the storyline coming out of the Super Bowl as the trophy is being hosted by either Jalen Hurts or Patrick Mahomes. What do you got? It's the Kelsey Bowl, too. We can't forget about that.
I can't go wrong here because if I predict the Eagles, I think that, I mean, I went against your Chiefs last week and took the Bengals, and that really was kind of anyone's game. But like we said before, I think the better team came out with it.
Right.
So I sort of helped your team get in by mushing them, but I did have the Eagles over the Niners. I'm going to do it again. I just feel like this Eagles team is really complete on every level, but I do think Mahomes is going to have a chance late, and it's like, what's going to give? Are the Eagles going to get diced up in the final couple minutes, or is that pass rush going to come in a situation where the Chiefs have to score touchdown or bust? 28-24 Eagles, and Jalen Hurts ends up being the MVP.
28-24 Eagles. I think this has potential to be a top 5 Super Bowl of all time. I really do. I mean, you got two really, really good quarterbacks. I don't know the last time we've had two quarterbacks that play at this type of style. Obviously, we've had, Marino, Montana, Super Bowls like that. But these two type of quarterbacks, their style, and again, I touched on earlier, both have the same amount of Pro Bowlers, same amount of All Pros. They scored the exact same amount of points in the regular season and had the same record. So I think this could be a good one. I'm going to take the Chiefs 27-21. I think it's not as high scoring as some people think.
Yeah.
Some people think it's going to be in the 30s and 40s, but
yeah, I think
it's
all
going to be
important.
Yeah, I think it's going to be. I think both teams score immediately. First drives, you touched on it. I think the Eagles come out, they score. I think the Chiefs either have a big penalty on that drive, and because once the Eagles, I'm going to be honest, Chiefs fans, there's no bend or break defense this game. The Chiefs have been a bend or break defense the last couple of weeks. There's none of that. They get in the red zone, you're done. They're going to find ways to score. So it's all on if they can make them one-dimensional.
I fired up, man. I'm glad we got to talk it. I kind of even got it out of my brain this past week and just like, all right, since we got the 2 weeks off, I'm not even going to worry about it until like next week.
Right.
Now we're here. It's you can count the days, and I guess it's media day tomorrow. Was it today? I think it's tomorrow. It's usually that Tuesday, right? So should have some good sound bites to talk about leading up to the Super Bowl tomorrow. Yes,
we should. Before you go, of course, you have to let people know where they can listen to you. I know that you had some Guardians, the Orlando Guardians for other people in your area, or just if you're an XFL fan. Paxton Lynch, former first-round pick of the Denver Broncos, he was on the show today. Am I right?
Yeah. In fact, he's battling it out with DeAndre Francois. You remember from Florida State?
Oh yeah, from Florida State.
And Paxton Lynch talked about having a connection with Cody Latimer, former Broncos. They were Broncos together. They're both on the XFL Orlando Guardians. So
Yeah, good receiver.
We're going to have at least somebody from the Guardians on every week once the season starts. So that'll be cool. And we're on 96.9 The Game through, your regular radio dial or the iHeart Media app, In the Zone with Brandon Kravitz and yours truly, Mike Tozzi. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m. And you can find me on social at Tozzcast, T-O-Z-Z cast.
Make sure you guys go check them out there, guys, especially if you guys are fans of the Orlando Magic. Or, again, we talked about the Bucks and the surrounding area teams in Florida. Make sure you guys go check them out. Mike, appreciate you so much for being on the show again on the TPT podcast.
Always a pleasure. Hopefully we're getting to talk about I'm willing to be wrong. Hopefully we're going to be talking about a Chiefs championship if I'm so lucky to have me on.
Yep. Yeah, we'll have to have you on next week to see if maybe you're kind of the reverse jinx, hopefully, because then you're going to be on every week for the rest of eternity. You're going to be 80 years old and you can barely talk. Like, you better pick a team. You better pick against the Chiefs.
A professional mush. I mean, in all seriousness, the Eagles are built for real, but you guys have Mahomes, so I can never rule you guys out. Right.
So maybe I'll definitely hit you up for the Super Bowl party, because you know that you were going to have nachos, beer, and nachos.
Buffalo wings.
Buffalo wings. All right. So we'll definitely have to do that. Thank you again for being on the show.
All right, brother. Talk soon.
All right, guys. That'll do it for the TPT podcast. We will see you guys all this week with special guests coming on. Some former Chiefs will be on the podcast. We will see you guys next
Thanks
time.
for watching. Make sure you guys hit that notification bell, follow us on all social media, and check out our videos each week.